Hey everyone, so Enma has started acting up again, which seems to be a result of either Zoro losing his focus and his ability to control his haki as he gets beaten down by King, or the result of Enma hearing the shamisen music of Hiyori, who is not only Odin's daughter, but technically the rightful heir to Enma. Perhaps it's even a combination of both factors, but this chapter does raise the question as to whether or not Enma is truly Zoro's sword just yet, as well as the possibility that Enma is not actually the final sword that Zoro is supposed to leave this arc with. And I'm going to lay out exactly why that is, but first I think I need to break down the simple reality that Enma is fundamentally different from Zoro's past swords. And more importantly, the way that Zoro got Enma is fundamentally different from the way Zoro got his past swords. And this difference in how Zoro acquired Enma is something that no one is talking about, despite it being, to me, a glaring red flag. So I've referred to Enma as a magic sword a couple of times, which has gotten people arguing with me that no, it's not magic, it's just cursed, same as Kitetsu. And look, please understand, I'm joking mostly when I say that, okay? I'm not actually claiming that Enma is literally some magic weapon that can shoot lightning or make Zoro invincible or 100 times stronger or something, but I'm just saying let's have some perspective and look back at Zoro's previous swords, because this is not black and white. There is some nuance to exactly how similar and how different Enma actually is from Zoro's other swords. It is 100% true that anytime Zoro has picked up a new special grade sword in the past, it has always given him an extra edge as a swordsman. After picking up Sandai Kitetsu and Yubashiri, Zoro was commenting on their cutting ability. With Shisui, it was actually an even more notable advantage, as now Zoro's attacks are explicitly more powerful than they were before, and it seems that he can now block greater physical force than he could before, thanks to Shisui's sturdiness. So yes, it is 100% true that Zoro upgrading his swords has always given him a new edge in combat, and none of us have ever had a problem with those improvements. However, I still think it would be extremely disingenuous to pretend that Enma isn't substantially different than those previous sword upgrades, because it's not the same as just being a sharper or more durable sword. We know the sword literally draws out more of Zoro's haki on its own. And we have at this point multiple statements that play up the unique mystic power of Enma specifically. Zoro himself talking about bringing out more of Enma's power, the Yonko specifically seeming to fear that sword, Kaido attributing attacks to Odin's spirit within Enma. I am not by any means saying that this is like all Enma and not Zoro. Not at all. Obviously, we've been shown very clearly and explicitly that it is because Zoro is Zoro that he alone is capable of mastering Enma. No one else can do this. And we already know that, Zoro could use Conqueror's haki-based abilities like Ashura long before he got Enma. So it's not just because he has Enma that he's able to do what he can do. I'm not trying to say that Enma is doing all the work. I'm just saying let's apply some nuance here and be honest that the way that Enma is talked about and being credited and portrayed is still fundamentally different than any other past sword of Zoro's. Both those things can be true. A lot of people claim that Enma isn't even that big of a deal because it's not like it's a supreme grade sword, like Yoru, for example, is the strongest sword in the world. And that's fine, that's true. I'm sure the physical strength, the actual quality of the Enma blade, isn't as strong as a supreme grade sword, but that is still circumventing the more important discussion, which is Enma's special ability that no other blade has or has ever been hinted to have, which is that Enma draws out the haki of the user. That is just not the same as how good or high quality the blade itself is. Swords of equal grade to Enma, like Shisui and Wado Ichimonji, don't have the special ability that Enma does. The ability to draw out more of the user's haki is a special cursed or mystical property unique to Enma. Even other cursed blades like Sandai or Nidai Kitetsu don't do this. Again, not saying Zoro is getting some sort of a cheap boost thanks to Enma. Please listen to the full discussion of the video and you may understand where I'm going with this. Obviously, only Zoro seems capable of even using Enma. All I'm saying is that no matter how you spin it, Enma does give a unique advantage that seems to go beyond just being a strong, high-quality blade, beyond just being, very sharp or durable. This effect it has for the user's haki is fundamentally different, and has been portrayed as a more meaningful advantage than any other weapon upgrade Zoro has had in the past. There's a reason so many fans were talking about Zoro's strength pre-Enma and post-Enma. whereas that has literally never been a discussion in the series with any other sword upgrade Zoro has had in the past. Even with Shisui, no one was scaling, pre-time skip Zoro as pre-Shisui and post-Shisui, because even though Shisui was a clear upgrade over Yubashiri, it never seemed like a huge leap forward. And to argue against that is simply revisionist history. You all know we never talked about Shisui like that. So that's point one, which is that Enma is, of course, it's not a super amazing magic sword, but still, let's be honest here, it is a sword that clearly gives a more notable boost to Zoro than any other past sword acquisition, and clearly does something for its user that no other sword in the history of One Piece has ever been hinted at doing. Now, point number two, which is far more important in my eyes, is how Zoro got Enma. Throughout One Piece, each of Zoro's swords has a story behind how he got it. Yes, each sword is an upgrade, but Zoro is never just handed a better weapon. He has to earn it each time. Wado Ichimonji is by far the most meaningful story for Zoro, with him losing 2001 duels to his rival before finally she passes away and he inherits it in her stead as the only one worthy to carry their dreams together. Then Sandai Kitetsu and Yubashiri. The scene of Zoro earning Sandai Kitetsu is probably one of the most iconic moments for him as a character, and one of the most memorable moments in One Piece in general for a reason, as it encapsulates exactly who Zoro is and why he is worthy of becoming the world's strongest swordsman one day. Despite hearing about the legendary curse around Sandai Kitetsu, Zoro has zero hesitation in betting on himself against the curse, and puts it all on the line in the most fearless, all-or-nothing manner possible. As I talked about in my Zoro analysis, this scene essentially represents exactly what makes Zoro, Zoro. He is willing to put everything on the line for his dream, because his philosophy is that if he fails, then that simply proves he was never worthy of achieving his dream, and it's actually precisely because he lives by that philosophy that makes him worthy of achieving his dream. In this moment, everyone, Tashigi, the owner, and the reader, immediately come to understand the same thing that Mihawk understood, that the strength of Zoro's spirit is exactly why he is the man who can stand above all other swordsmen, why a cursed blade would actually bend to his will and work for him so perfectly. Zoro's strength of spirit makes his destiny far transcend something as simple as a curse. Zoro earns that blade in every sense of the word, and he earns Yubashiri in the process as well, though that is of course less important and later destroyed. And finally, Shisui requires no explanation. Zoro had to earn that blade in a straight-up duel with his own ancestor, the sword god Raima, very likely the greatest swordsman in history, and by defeating Raima, Zoro proves that he is worthy of Raima's blade, and even if he doesn't know it just yet, Zoro proves that he is a worthy modern-day heir and descendant of Raima, a fact that we will find out only much later in the story. So in general, Zoro's blades so far all have a strong story for Zoro behind them, some meaningful moment for his character. But then we get to Enma, and this really bothered me. As the blade that seems to be the most powerful in Zoro's arsenal, the blade that seems to give him a bigger upgrade, a bigger increase in ability than any other blade so far, a blade that is talked about and hyped over and over again, that clearly has special properties beyond any other blade we've ever seen, this blade is the one that is simply handed to him. There is no story behind Zoro and this sword. He is simply told that he is not allowed to have Shisui, so how about you take this sword instead? Yes, Zoro has to control Enma's power, but this scene is a pale imitation of a far more meaningful, actually memorable moment where Zoro had to prove something about himself, about his character. There is a powerful, defining storytelling setup for him earning Sandai Kitetsu. With Enma, it is a really generic moment with nothing behind it. One panel it sucks out Zoro's haki, then next panel he's got it down just fine. For the most powerful weapon Zoro has ever gotten, there is the least substance behind its acquisition. However, if you are furiously typing your comments away below, please listen a bit longer. I think that this generic acquisition is very, very intentional by Oda. Why do I say that? Because first of all, Enma is giving Zoro issues again at a pivotal moment. Zoro is in a life or death duel with an opponent out of his league, and Zoro clearly has his back against the wall, and we've seen how these situations have pushed Zoro to new heights in the past. So even though we got really nothing for Enma before, now Now, there is actually an opportunity for a story to be told for Zoro earning Enma. I know Zoro fans are especially defensive about all the mentions that Enma is what's special, it's Oden's presence in Enma that makes it so dangerous, etc. But don't be defensive, because I think that's partly the point. I think Oda is slipping in dialogue like that, as I think that Enma truly isn't Zoro's sword yet. I think that we are set up for something maybe a little more meaningful for Zoro that will put that talk to rest. This fight provides an opportunity for growth for Zoro, and the growth may very well be related to actually making Enma truly Zoro's sword rather than Oden's. That is the first possibility, which I think is actually really exciting for Zoro, that the greatest duel of his life might be the one where he does truly earn the most important sword. Maybe even a callback to him earning Shisui through the duel with Raima, as Thriller Bark was, after all, heavy foreshadowing for Wano. Now, there's also another possibility that comes out of this which could lead to an equally interesting development, which is that maybe Zoro's actually not even meant to have Enma as his long-term sword. Not because he can't use it well, because he obviously can, but perhaps the sword is legitimately supposed to be Hiyori's, the one the sword was actually meant to be given to in the first place. I say this because for a long time, all readers have seen the similarities between Sanji getting the raid suit and Zoro getting Enma. Both new power-ups that were kind of just casually handed to them from external sources that have been, mildly controversial in terms of how much of a boost they give both of them. How much is it because the characters themselves are special versus just being handed power-ups? Only Sanji can use the raid suit, only Zoro can use Enma, but at the end of the day, it all led up to Sanji actually discarding the raid suit. That power-up was a red herring for Sanji all along. Why? Because this is an arc that has a strong theme of identity, of characters needing to find themselves, and it's connected to an arc, Whole Cake Island, that is largely about the importance of being yourself. So Enma is clearly a powerful weapon, but is it the right weapon for Zoro? Is it truly his weapon when characters still comment on Oden's presence? Is it truly his weapon when it might even now be responding to its rightful owner's music? Is Enma still Oden's sword? Is it Hiyori's sword? Or is it Zoro's sword? If this arc is about identity, finding oneself, following Whole Cake Island's themes of being as true to the real you as possible, and with Zoro just having started this fight with it being revealed that he actually is the son of a Shimotsuki, he actually is the descendant of Raima, who's to say that Shisui wasn't the right blade for him all along, the sword that he rightfully earned and was handed by Raima himself? Alternatively, who's to say that Nidai Kitetsu isn't the sword that he should have at his side by the end of this arc, as the Kitetsu blades most closely embody Zoro's persona as this demonic swordsman? It's possible that Enma was a red herring, much like the raid suit was a red herring, a temporary power-up that was kind of just casually handed to Zoro and Sanji that isn't necessarily true to them. Not saying Zoro will destroy Enma, but maybe it really is meant for Hiyori, and instead, Shisui or Nidai Kitetsu is what Zoro really should have by his side. I think having to replace Enma would be an interesting route for the character as well. So bottom line, I see two routes here involving Enma that are both potentially really great for Zoro's character. One would be the route of actually making Enma his, doing something, having a story with Enma, or overcoming some test of character that basically ends all of this nonsense so that we never have to hear anything about Oden and Enma again. Something that makes Enma truly permanently Zoro's, much like he earned all his other blades in the story so far. Or alternatively, Zoro losing with Enma because Enma was, let's say, a red herring similar to the raid suit, a power that is not actually right for Zoro even if it initially seemed that way, and Zoro then having to either reclaim Shisui as his heritage or earn a new sword that is possibly more fitting and unique to him, rather than relying on Oden's sword. I think both routes are valid. I believe either route has excellent potential and could make for a great story for Zoro's character, and I think it would stop a lot of the jokes that readers, including myself, make about Enma, and hopefully make for Zoro's best character storyline to date. I still believe that mastering Conqueror's Haki and Ashura is ultimately the most thematically fitting and properly set up development for Zoro and Wano, but I would love to see that combined with the potential developments surrounding Enma. I think these ideas can work together. So that's all for this video, and if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this every week.